Activated.
Analyzing.
Update complete.
The Sovereign-class ship is one of, if not the, most advanced ships in the fleet. Though the lore of the vessel can have some issues, which also includes why it was built, its top speeds, and other inconsistencies. So, let's just get into it. In what must be an homage to Voyager's writing, there is quite a bit of inconsistency regarding the Sovereign's layout and its floor plan. As an example, Captain Jean-Luc Picard would state that the ship has 24 decks, which is interesting since then we have Daniels going to deck 26 in the same movie. And then in the Nemesis film, both Data and Worf go to deck 29. Some sources try to explain this away as a benefit of the refit, and we'll get into that later, but apparently Starfleet is so advanced that they can add additional decks, they don't have to compact existing decks, and the ship's dimensions don't change at all. While there is no alpha canon confirmation of this, I do believe it's likely that the Federation-Gallifreyan alliance now included the trading of technologies. While I can find no alpha canon, many sources claim that the ship was 685 meters long, had a width of 250 meters, and a height of 88 meters. As a comparison, the Defiant class was 170 meters long, 134 meters wide, and 30 meters in height. Well stated, while the highest deck a character has traveled to is 29, the Master System's display, basically a schematic of the ship, shows that it only has 23 decks. The ship itself has a style of a more militaristic nature that Starfleet has adopted with most of its other vessels. The ship is sleek, its profile elongated, making it harder to hit. While doing research, I attempted to determine if the Sovereign had a blade of armor and regenerative shielding. Unfortunately, I don't see any real evidence of a blade of armor ever being on the ship itself. It's never mentioned nor confirmed that the Sovereign has regenerative shielding either, except if you consider the Battle of the Briar Patch, where the Enterprise shields were able to restore themselves at an unreasonable rate. Well, at least an unreasonable rate compared to other ships of the fleet. Shielding was typically something that took an inordinate amount of time for them to repair and restore, certainly not enough to be feasible in combat. However, it does seem like the shields are more adaptive and able to be restored more quickly for the Enterprise and the Sovereign class itself. This does not mean that the Sovereign class was impenetrable, just if you compare the shields of the Enterprise-E to that of the Enterprise-D, there is a difference. Additionally, when you consider this was, supposedly, the most advanced ship in the fleet and the widespread need for ablative and regenerative shielding to fight the Dominion threat, it seems unlikely, or even stupid, that Starfleet would not include these features on the ship. Eagle Moss, a company I highly recommend you check out for the best collectibles, states that the ship had both a neural gel pack-like system for its components and the standard ODN relays. The ship would generally rely on the bio pieces of the ship to make data move and process faster, but could switch to something that actually works if need be, that being the optical data network. They would of course switch to the optical data network when the bioneural gels failed, and they would. Though this feature isn't really anything I could find with alpha canon, so it's not really confirmed, but if it is there, that means that the Sovereign can get sick. Like the Intrepid, a ship can get sick. While doing some research and rewatching a few clips, the only observed speed that I could find of the Sovereign on screen was that of warp 8. That said, technical manuals state that the ship has a warp of 9.7. Now, here's where it gets somewhat dicey. Apparently there is a documentary where it is claimed that the Enterprise can go to warp 9.985, and a calendar later on goes to say that it's warp 9.995. That would make it the fastest ship. Unfortunately, I couldn't legally obtain a copy of this documentary, so I wasn't able to watch it, but depending on who says how fast it goes in the documentary, would really determine if the ship can go that fast. But honestly, if it can go this fast, this seems like too much of a power creep to me. With all of these advances, the Sovereign-class ship would become too powerful in some respects. It has all of the advantages and can do nearly everything. It's nearing the edges of being too powerful and a near Mary Sue ship. Honestly, everyone gets upset at how powerful the Scimitar is, but it would take something like the Scimitar to take down the Enterprise. The Enterprise is simply too powerful. That's why it would make sense that the ship could only achieve warp 8. This would give it a weakness. Well, I mean, if you consider warp 8 a speed that most Dominion ships can't reach, a disadvantage. There are also sources that claim the ship uses the variable geometric pylons. While this would make sense that the vessel would have the same ecologically friendly technology we see on the Intrepid, and of course likely other designs, the shape of the pylons and the way the warp fields work make me believe that this isn't the case. The warp nacelles are placed in a very distinct and specific way when claimed to be a part of the ecologically friendly line of ships. They do not match what we see on the Sovereign. I also don't see any evidence that they're using the warp drive that's required in canon. It seems likely that the Sovereign uses the same type of warp drives that previous iterations of the Enterprise did. The Sovereign class, in some ways, reminds me of the Palace ship from Star Trek Discovery in the Mirror Universe. The ship is a behemoth, a titan, but it also makes sure that the living quarters are quite comfortable. It took the home feeling from the Galaxy class and put them on what would be considered a very effective warship. The Sovereign offered both comfortable living and a tactical arsenal that could take on a Borg cube. The ship included a bar, holodecks, gymnasium, and public library. Because when you have a datapad and computer core that can look anything you want at home, libraries would still be in demand in the future. Interesting though, it would appear that, unlike previous ships, Sovereigns did not have families on them. This probably due to Wolf 359 in the Dominion War. Additionally, the Sovereign had state-of-the-art medical bays and a larger than usual shuttle bay that could accommodate both runabouts and shuttles. The shuttle bay would encompass quite a few decks, which was unusual for Starfleet designs. On the Sovereign, they would encompass decks 6 through 9. The tactical systems of the Sovereign were, to say the least, impressive both before and after refit, which is very intriguing given the role of the Sovereign class during the Dominion War, but more on that later. The Sovereign originally sported 12 phaser arrays, 1 forward quantum torpedo launcher, 1 forward photon torpedo launcher, and 3 aft photon torpedo launchers. After the refit of the ship, it would have 16 phaser arrays, 1 forward quantum torpedo launcher, 3 forward photon torpedo launchers, and 6 aft photon torpedo launchers. The additional phaser arrays would also be put at the back of the ship. The refit would honestly make sense too when you consider a pre-refit Sovereign. Before the refit, ships could get behind the Sovereign and stay there and be in much better position of destroying the vessel. After the refit, this problem was resolved. Sources such as Eagle Moss would claim that the Sovereign utilized Type 12 phasers, which is great. Every time we have a new ship, we go up a number on the type of phasers, so I'm looking forward to getting the Type 100 phasers sometime soon. Additionally, Eagle Moss also claims that the ship has a captain's yacht and can perform saucer separation. This isn't observed, and the saucer separation doesn't make a ton of sense. Okay, a captain's yacht, I kind of get, even though you have a huge shuttle bay. Given what the Sovereign class would be used for, it does make some sense. But a saucer separation? Why? I know Eagle Moss gets this from direct sources, but let's think about a saucer separation. Saucer separation on the Galaxy class was so that families aboard the saucer could escape while the secondary hull would turn around and fight. I honestly think that people who design these ships specifically go out of their way to give them saucer separation capabilities just to annoy me. Also, let me just address the elephant in the room. Many people have brought up a Space Talk video that talks about anti-Borg ships. While I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Space Talk is a wonderful channel, an inspiration for this channel, and one I consider to be superior to mine in every way. But even with me pointing that out, that doesn't mean I don't disagree with them sometimes. It makes absolutely no logical sense for Starfleet to be building an anti-Borg fleet. Not because Starfleet shouldn't be building an anti-Borg fleet, but just because that their mentality meant that they wouldn't. Remember, after Wolf 359, Starfleet jumped on building the Defiant to defeat the Borg, and then, when the Borg were no longer a threat in the public's mind, Starfleet stopped. They honestly began to move somewhat back to being pacifistic. The Battle of Wolf 359 occurred on 2367. The Borg weren't seen again till mid-2373. So that means the Borg hadn't been seen for over 6 years, and we know that the Borg stopped being a priority pretty early on. So let's take a look at the Dominion. The Dominion War had started early 2373, and we saw the Dominion Cold War had existed for years before that. There was also a lot of Dominion aggression. We know that the Defiant was brought out, not to fight the Borg, but the Dominion. If not for the Dominion, the Defiant would still be in mothballs. So we know the Defiant started as anti-Borg, but ultimately was fixed to fight against the Dominion. Let's look at the other ships and when they became active. The Sovereign class we know became active in the 2370s. Acura class in the 2370s. The Steamrunner class became active in the late 2360s to 2370s, if we believe beta canon, and the Sabre class in the 2370s. So you tell me which is more likely. In the 2370s, when the Dominion Cold War was in full effect, and then the Dominion invaded and started a war, which threat was these ships more likely built to defend against? A threat that the populace no longer thought was a threat, or the very obvious Dominion invasion? So again, let me restate, I love Space Talk, great channel, I just politely disagree. And to those in the audience who got downright rude saying that I was an idiot for not agreeing that these ships were made to be anti-Borg, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. School's out, so go ahead and go prosper in the world, and take what I have with you, and be a better person. Let's talk about the Sovereign's role in the Dominion War. The Sovereign class was a titan, extremely formidable. I would honestly be very interested to see a fight between the Prometheus class and the Sovereign class. I think it'd be a lot closer than people think. But for all the Sovereign's power, we don't have a lot of evidence that the ship had any significant role in the Dominion War. Most of the evidence suggests that the Sovereign class was used for diplomatic purposes. This does somewhat make sense. Look, whether you like Picard or not, his mastery at being a diplomat is undeniable. With only a few writing gaffes, Picard is really well known for keeping the peace and inspiring hope. So creating a massive battleship, or a few battleships that would go around Federation space, ensuring that planets do not openly revolt or join the Dominion, would make sense. Additionally, given how powerful the Sovereign class was and how massive, it doesn't seem feasible or cost-effective to build them, especially when you can get the same effect by pumping out a few Defiance, Acuras, and other classes. Additionally, with the extreme manpower shortage that Starfleet was encountering, back to the aforementioned Dominion threat, not the Borg threat, Sovereigns wouldn't be the mainstay of the fleet. A Sovereign could have well over 500 or more officers. Or enlisted and officers. I know I get in trouble every time I say officers, even though the show calls all people in the Starfleet officers. However, that wouldn't mean that the Sovereign class was simply for show. As we see at the Battle of Sector 001, Sovereign ships were extremely formidable, especially given that it was able to go toe-to-toe with a Borg cube. And last but not least, the Sovereign is an absolutely beautiful ship. Honestly, when you have a good collectible... when I look at the collectible given to me, it looks spectacular. One of the cool things about this job is that Eagle Moss will send me out the ships and I get to take a deeper, closer look at them. And I tell you, this ship is absolutely beautiful, almost on par with the Acura class. On that note, just so you guys know, I'll be sending out a free Sovereign class ship to one lucky patron in the United States. To be eligible to win one, it is stupid easy. Go to patreon.com/Lore Reloaded and become a patron for as low as $1 a month. After March 2nd, someone will randomly be chosen within the United States and I'll send it out to you. And of course, not only do you enter to win, but you also get all other kinds of fun content that I offer. As stated, US citizens only, and the reason why is because I'm not rich and can't send it all over the world. But beyond that, what do you guys think about the Sovereign? Love it? Hate it? Tell me in the comments below, and then go to Twitter @Lore Reloaded and let me know there. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.